Hey folks, I am Dan Keldsen, host of Next Future Today and co-founder of Plexicam.com. My guest today is John Harris. He's co-founder and CEO of BuzzIt. Hey John, how's it going?
Good, yourself?
You know, every day that ends in Y, I'm happy to be on this side of the dirt.
Yeah, I could feel the same. Yeah. Sometimes I wish I could take like a brief moment outside of reality, but hey, we're all stuck here for the time being, right?
What is reality? That's a different topic.
Longer show.
Yeah. So if you have not heard about BuzzIt, so John, I think did you reach out to me or did I reach out to you through LinkedIn? I honestly don't recall.
I can't remember, Dan. I think we were both commenting on something similar, and so we checked out each other's profiles, sent some messages, and here we are.
Okay. All right. Well, as it turns out, we have a fair amount in common, video being one of them, music being another. I was saying to John before we were rolling that I have a whole bunch of guitars and basses this way. So what I found interesting about your background, so Next Future Today is all about if you were going to learn anything, some massive disruption like, say, COVID comes along and nobody really had a plan for something that's so disruptive across the entire world. That's like the first time personally I ever felt like I was in the same situation as literally everybody else in the world.
Yeah.
And most people don't seem to plan, period, in companies that, you might have a plan that starts on January 1st. And when the lockdown happened, March, April, I asked a whole bunch of people, what are you doing with your business? Did your plan that you had on January 1st still work? Are you still doing that? Or did you have to do something entirely different? So that's why I thought your story was interesting. But before we get to COVID, post-COVID, can you tell me a little bit about where you came from and what was, why did you create BuzzIt?
Sure. Yeah. So it started as a totally different product. Turns out one that a lot of people created and also failed every single time. So we had the initial inspiration for the product shortly after smartphones came out. I was at the P&E, which is a local festival, had a really bad experience with a food vendor. There's like 50,000 people around. And I wanted to be able to share that experience with those people that were nearby. So just like, hey, like I got burnt food and it was expensive. Don't waste your time. Because there was like a 20-minute lineup, right? I wanted to be able to share that. And I looked at my phone. I was like, man, like I'm connected to my friends and family on Facebook. I'm connected to the world through Twitter, but I can't connect with everybody here in this place. And that kind of seems ridiculous to me because it's got GPS, it's got a cell connection. I should be able to do that, right? But I wasn't. And so that's kind of what kicked off the idea for the product. So it was like a location-based messaging product. And I was in university at the time. And so I started talking to a lot of students, and it seemed like the biggest need that I could find being a student was in classrooms. Like people like me had come in from nearby universities or nearby colleges to this big university where they went from like class of 30 people to class of 400. And all of a sudden I'm in third year. I know nobody. Everybody's sitting there silently going home, not talking to anybody. Right. And I was like, if we could use that product in the classroom, then it'd be really easy to like build connections based on these shared experiences. Right. So we built that product, started using it and launching it in schools. It was a lot of fun for a lot of people, but it was also like an impossible business to make right because it was hard to get the students onto the product in the first place. You'd have to like break into classrooms, blah blah blah. Then they didn't want to pay anything. So it's like, how is it a business? It's just like fun, right? And so we started using it in different locations, and events is where a lot of people started really appreciating it. So this is pre-pandemic. This was like late 2018, early 2019. And so we were using it as a way to help people just have more conversations at the small events they were going to. So events we were working with were typically between 75 and 150 people. They were somewhere from 90 minutes to 3 hours. And most people would go there. They'd show up because of the content, but the main reason they justified showing up was networking. And yet they had like 30 minutes before the event, 30 minutes after. When you do the math on 150 people trying to connect with 150 others, that's basically impossible in that time period. And so we started using our chat system at those events, getting to know event creators and what their problems were a lot more, and like started trying to shift our product from being a product built specifically for the attendee to a product that was built also to help the host make a better experience for their attendees. And so that's kind of what got us into it in the first place.
I think it is useful. I mean, there's some little mini pivots in there. there's classic issues. You can build something like for Plexicam, which is my main business now. I remember when we had sold zero, and we wondered, will anybody buy this? And as it turns out, it's, now we're almost 2 years into it, and yes, thousands of people will buy it. That's awesome. But until you actually try to get somebody to buy it, you're never going to know if it's going to work. So you have to have sort of the stomach to do that, right? That's interesting. I mean, there's still kind of not really a good solution to that right now, because if you do, well, maybe I'm just behind the times. I deleted like location-based apps years ago, so I don't even know what's out there anymore. But it seems like there probably isn't really a good solution for.
There still isn't a great solution for it, and there's reasons. Like, one of the things is like, if you actually look back at The Office, I think that, what is it? Toby is the assistant in that show, and he invents a product that's kind of similar, but it's called Woof, and it's like you can send a message to everybody nearby instantly, and so everybody's just, their phones just ding 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 ding. It's just stupid, right? Like, you don't want to know everybody's thoughts all the time, right? It's like,
yeah.
It's kind of a hard system to filter. So I don't think anybody's really created the best filtering system for it yet. And so, like, now with our product, instead of being like a random thing that people can use in the audience, it's something created by the host that has a specific purpose. And all of a sudden, all the messages that you kind of can get are aligned with the purpose of the event. And it makes a heck of a lot more sense to have that central organizer, right?
When I was reading through your site, and you have a lot of great blog posts that I was going through, it does seem like, and I've been in events businesses for a long time, there's a lot of constituents or audiences, or, there's communities. I don't know how to think of it, but it does seem, especially through COVID and now post-COVID, there's been like, do sponsors get left out, for example? Is it only one sponsor, the hosting organization, whatever it might be? What happens to virtual attendees versus in-person attendees, or virtual speakers versus in-person speakers? It's not often that it's really thought through. How does this work for everybody that actually has a potential say in the event? But it seems like you found something when COVID hit, and through that led you in a slightly different direction. Is that me reading too much into it, or is that true?
Definitely a different direction. And I think at this point we are a good fit for a small group of people. We're looking at the event market, and so we didn't even really know about online events until COVID started. But then all of our clients went online, and they were good enough to keep using our product where they could, and letting us just attend their events and learn about their problems and interview them and like propose solutions. So that's kind of how we got to where we are. But so for them and for the people we're still targeting, it's like they have the choice essentially between a hodgepodge of solutions. So it's like, sometimes that's email and spreadsheets, sometimes it's a streaming provider, sometimes it's Zoom, YouTube, whatever, maybe some audience engagement tools. And then on the other side, they've got those really big conference tools. And there's basically nothing in the middle besides us now. And so we're trying to have one solution that can solve all those problems for that narrow niche. So if you're running that big conference, you could not use our product. It just simply wouldn't do it. But for those people running those smaller, kind of more frequent events, our product can save a lot of the setup time and then get them a lot better results, both for their attendees themselves and then their sponsors as well. A lot of people are still trying to do things the old way. And it's hard to blame them, because like, I think most event creators pre-pandemic didn't know about online events. They had to learn online events for the next year, and it sucked because their budgets were cut. And now they're having to learn how to do hybrid. And so now they're at this point where like some of their community members are still demanding online access. Some just want to do it in person. And then so they're trying to bridge the gap with hybrid, but then that's a whole new learning curve. And it's like, I don't blame them for not being able to satisfy everybody all at once, because their job is 3 times harder than it was before the pandemic. And they're generally not very tech friendly people. Like they can use it and they do all the time, but it's not their reason for existence, right? Like, most of them want to be working with people, and that's why they fell in love with events.
Yeah, I think a lot of people were not familiar with virtual events. We were all subject to probably universally terrible webinars is probably the closest that we came to. Live streaming wasn't really a thing yet. For a lot of people. I mean, there have been streamers for a long time, but as a business means, it was pretty rare pre-pandemic. So for Plexicam, I still answer a lot of customer inquiries, pre-purchase, post-purchase, all that. And part of the reason I do that is I want to make sure that we're tied into our clients to find out, if
Absolutely.
we can't claim that we're the solution for everybody, because we are definitely not. There's no such thing for pick a niche. It
Yeah.
doesn't matter. But I want to know where it definitely isn't a good fit, because then we can steer people away. I don't want people to buy something that is actually not going to be a good fit. And if it is a potentially good fit, then conceptually, what is the right fit for them? Because we have different products. So it sounds
Right.
like, so pre-pandemic, were you really sort of engaged in talking to your potential clients to the
Oh,
extent that you
absolutely.
were
Yeah. I
posted?
was helping them run their events. Essentially, I would show up and
Okay.
be there, a free additional team member. So I
Okay.
was there to, I wanted to learn just directly, like, what are these things that they're doing that are taking the time? Like, where are the gaps? Where are the roadblocks? How can I build a solution that'll make a lot of these things easier for these people? But yeah, so that's what it was like pre-pandemic, and then same thing online during the pandemic as well, getting to know them better and their new problems, which was even more interesting. These days, it's great. I'm helping people out with hybrid events locally here in Vancouver, BC. I'm helping people out on site when they want to set up these hybrid events, and it's really fun to learn. It's like the stuff that I learned. Like, some of these things they're easy to do if you're doing them your second time, or if somebody's just taught you that just did it. But if you're just trying to figure it out for the first time, it's just about impossible, right? Or like, you're never going to get it right. And I'm sure events have this kind of interest differentiator from any other event technology has this differentiator from any other product, where, like, if you fail to do it during the event, there's no going back. Like, the event happens once a month, and sometimes it just lasts 90 minutes. And so you've got that 90 minutes with the 100 people in a room to get it right. Otherwise, those 100 people are gone, and they're not going to be back until the next month. And maybe they won't come back if everything totally blew up. Right.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's like, I think they've said that event organizers for some years have been the most stressful job in the world.
Mm.
Like, as high
Yep.
as, like, I think maybe even higher than like firefighters or like paramedics. Being able to be there on site and see what they're going through really helped us just envision what our product should be and deliver something that was stable and simple.
Did you formally study like anthropology or anything like that, or is it just observing sort of how you're wired?
For me, I think it was just my observing myself in the world and how I was wired. So I really had that problem in college of making a first connection with people. When we started doing events and we were pushing our chat product, I was asking people after the event, what's the most, or what were you doing on your phone during the event? Like, I saw you on your phone. What were you doing on your phone during the event? I was secretly hoping they were like, I love the chat product. That's what I was hoping for. The actual top answer was they were Googling the presenters that were on stage. And so, like, okay, like, this is number one, like, it'd be great if the host could provide that for you. At the time, they were providing like some basics on paper, but these members clearly wanted more, right? Could the host provide that? And then, like, how much more focus could that give the attendees if you're Googling somebody you just saw on stage, Google and then Facebook, if it takes you there, those are the most distracting places in the world. Like, is that what you
Yeah.
want is that what you want your attendees to be looking at while they're trying to pay attention to whatever content you have?
Right.
And so the next shift we made was the biggest thing that we've worked on, and I think is still one of the flagship things that draw people back to our product, is our profile system. So essentially, in the very basics pre-pandemic, we just replaced paper booklets. That was our first real value creator.
Sure.
And so what was interesting for me, and getting back to where's my kind of background in this, is I pre us making those profiles, I was the worst networker in the world. So I would be showing up. I'd be showing up early to the events, but I'd be hiding out by the pizza, pretending my phone was really interesting. And then, but then during the time when I started manually building those profiles when we just had our really, really basic MVP product out there, right? I was manually building these profiles. So I was doing all these research and all these presenters, and I would come into the event then ready to talk to everybody. That's really was kind of the light bulb moment for me, and like how we could actually make networking better for everybody, even if they were that pizza hiding wallflower like me.
That's funny. So I'm just going to mention this because it comes up every once in a while. Do you know Keith Ferrazzi, or do you know, maybe not know him personally, but have you heard of Keith Ferrazzi?
No.
So his first book was called Never Eat Alone. and
Okay, I've heard of that book for sure.
huge bestseller. It's
Yeah.
been rewritten at least a second time. I had just read a chapter or two of that book before I went to an event in Boston. Like every single page has like 20 ideas on how you can get to know other people. And one of them is to literally never eat alone, and you go, eat with a colleague that you've never talked to, or a client, or just a random person. Hey, do you mind if I sit down here? And I got to this event right at lunchtime. I would usually try to find a table of 2 or 3 people. And then if it goes great, fantastic. And if it doesn't, I'll walk away shortly
Yeah.
and go find something else. But I went up to the fullest table that I could find, and I sat down and I was talking to people, and I realized that we already had a lot in common because we were at this event, and I knew a lot about that event because I was a researcher and an analyst in that space. I was like, well, I have things to talk about, and I know they do, and I actually found a bunch of sponsors or vendors that I knew that I'd never met in person. It was the most
Right.
productive networking event I'd ever experienced, and it was
Nice.
so simple.
Yeah.
And part of it is that research. If you can go in advance, like I don't follow sports, I could care less. I don't know what season it is. Doesn't matter to
Yeah.
me. In whatever your space is, if you come with some curiosity and do a little bit of homework, so what is the topic, what are the things that I care about that are maybe controversial compared to what everybody else is talking about. Those little hooks that you can either throw out there yourself and try to make a connection, or sort of, this is maybe a bad analogy, become the bait for a topic. Be known as, this is the guy or the person that's interested in a topic. So it sounds like that's the kind of experience that you went through that mentally got you out from the pizza eating wallflower, or the wallflower
Yeah.
eating pizza. I don't know which one it was.
Yeah, no, that sounds a lot like it. And that's why I just love events in general. Like, if the content is well focused, then it draws the right crowd. And then, so actually, this is interesting. I think, as somebody that built a networking product for events, I hate networking events. So a
Yeah.
networking event to me is where you'll go and find a realtor and a lawyer and a financial planner all trying to sell
Yes.
you whatever the hell their services are,
Right.
walking around as fast as they can, handing out business cards. But there's no like other reason to be there other than for these professionals to show you their cards. But
Yeah.
like I really like networking at events that are surrounded by like the draw is content, right? Because then like if
Mhm.
you promote the event as like, it's on this topic or that topic, the people that
Yep.
show up, they're naturally inclined to have that alignment that you felt sitting at that table at 12, right? And then conversation becomes easy because everybody's there for the same reason, right?
So you were purely on site, purely for people at a concert, let's say, in the early days. You had to morph a bit through virtual, like everybody did, if you're going to have anything to do with events, because
Yeah.
that's the nature of it. It's that or do nothing, basically. What did you learn that then took you, and maybe positioned you differently, clearly, than where you thought you were going to be 2 years later, but differently as compared to maybe other competitors that you used to have, and now you have new competitors, or the landscape changed and it wasn't just you.
Yeah, so pre-COVID, we were just focused on those on-site events, and so single track speaker events. So like 75 to 150 people, usually 90 minutes to maybe 3 hours, and really focus on helping the audience make those connections. It was just a one-click dedicated website that worked really well on mobile. That's all it was. It was
Okay.
so simple. I couldn't believe that somebody was even paying for it. It was great. But we had 3 local organizations using it once a month and getting really high engagement with it.
Okay.
And then online, like what we became, it was just endless. We were living in the hell of our customers' lives as they shifted into online, and we're trying to figure everything out, right? And so through that, I'd say like the first 4 to 6 months was just like kind of attending their events with them, seeing like how we could help with the product that we did have, and then just trying to see what was next, like where's the major roadblocks for you. And we just kept coming up with these, kept just realizing that the more people we talked to, the more they had the same common issues. And so
Mm-hmm.
that was, if they were going up to like the big conference platforms, it'd be such a headache. Like if you look at one of the best platforms out there is Hopin. And it's like, it's built for really big conferences up to 100,000 people. Like it's that's like
Right.
a headline on their website. And so
Right.
that's like, that sounds great. Like, wow, it must be really robust. And yeah, robust also means complicated. And so
Yeah.
to set that up, there's a 2-week training program for hosts. There's a 4-hour training program to be a speaker.
Oh
Like
my God,
if
I didn't
you're
know
going to
that.
be donating your time to, like, a lot of our the events we work with, people aren't getting paid to speak. They're there to talk for 15 minutes to an hour,
Yep.
to kind of promote themselves in some way, right? But
Right.
they're
Yeah.
not being paid to be there, so they're not going to take a 4-hour training course. And so, like, the admin that the hosts were having to do, like to get these speakers on board, was just like they were spending weeks of just speaker onboarding. And it's
Yeah.
like,
Wow.
if you only have a 3-hour event, you can't really invest that much time, right?
Right.
Um,
That seems
and then
lopsided.
so yeah, it's very lopsided. And then so they were still getting like really poor show up rates for those events as well, because, like, again, if you're running 100,000 person conference and your people are paying $500 to show up for 3 days, damn rights they're going to set apart that time. They're going to be at their
Right.
laptops. They're going to have their kids at the sitter, and they're going to be ready to attend and engage. But if you're
Right.
running a 3-hour weeknight event, people don't want to learn how to navigate a conference platform for a 3-hour event. They might
Right.
not even be at their desk. And if they can't access on mobile, which they can't on almost every platform, then they're just not going to show up at all. That was like the problem with the platforms, is like, this could offer something better, but it's like just way too much work.
Right.
And then on the other side, people are just dealing with this kind of Frankenstein mess of other products that they would cobble together, right?
Sure.
So sometimes it's like custom websites, long email chains, separate like voting or engagement apps, maybe a webinar tool like Zoom, maybe they're live streaming to YouTube, but just never smooth, never seamless, right?
It's funny because I've worked with large companies as like a consultant, and smaller organizations, and I've had my own businesses. The Frankenstein effect is everywhere, as it turns out. Actually,
Yeah,
it doesn't matter. You
yeah,
could be a $100 billion annual revenue company, and that's a Frankenstein situation that nobody wants to touch, really, because who knows when you pull out the one peg and the whole thing
right.
falls apart.
Yeah, it comes back to that, of just helping everybody, like, have all that stuff in one place and be easily accessible by everyone. It just makes it just so much easier for everybody involved, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, and so we were working, finding those common problems, and then we just kept presenting potential solutions. Like, what's the next thing that we can solve? And we do a bunch of outreach to a bunch of people that we could find on Eventbrite or wherever, and just be like, can I talk to you about some of the problems that you're having, and like how our solution might solve it? And I definitely had like 100 conversations for every person that ended up trying the product. But from each one of those conversations, I got a little bit of guidance about like what would and would not work. So they were
Sure.
really much more like product discovery and like customer interview kind of conversations than anything else. And so like another 6 months after that, we actually had a new product that would kind of fit this niche group of event creators.
The idea of pivoting is an interesting idea, which I don't think you mentioned specifically. I'm just putting those words into your mouth, but you
Yeah.
start out with an idea. You were in college. If that idea was not actually paying, what's the point in doing that? So
Yeah.
let's find a way to make that work and have it be a paid product. Pandemic hits. You really think, oh, our in-person event platform no longer makes sense because that's not happening. And we had no idea, is it going to be a month? Everybody's like, oh, by
Totally.
May it'll be fine. By September, by next year it's going to be fine. By the time I
Yeah, I
die,
remember
it'll be
those.
fine.
Oh,
So, and that's part of the point of Next Future Today is you could wait forever and do something eventually. Or if you're going to deal with something that just happened yesterday or today, you should probably get started right now to make that next future something that you've designed, that you've done on purpose, instead of just like you got socked in the face and oops, I guess I'll stay down until they go.
yeah, yeah,
uh,
totally. Yeah,
so
no,
that's
never had that. Never wanted to take a break for a second there. Yeah, it's kind of that show must go on thing, right? Which harkens back to event coordinators. Event coordinators are pretty amazing, and they'll see something like light on fire, and they'll be like, don't worry about it.
Right.
Just like focus on the show.
Right. Yeah.
Clean that up afterwards, right? Yeah. What a kind of theme that it comes back to is resilience. So there's like pivoting is kind of how you become resilient. But then for our product and what we've ended up with today, our event sites allow those event organizers to be resilient. So like if their venue cancels on them and they've already done all this setup, then they can shift with our product. They can easily shift to just having an online experience. So I think ideally our company is now at least pandemic resilient, but we'll see what the next future brings us. So
awesome, cool. Well, thanks, John. This is John Harris with BuzzIt. BuzzIT.ca is the website. If you have not seen that, go take a look.
Actually, trying to shift into video. So if you want to see any more time saving tips, if you really want to save like 80% of your setup time, check out some of the videos that we have on YouTube.
Oh, fantastic.
Always, otherwise, book a meeting with me too, and I'm happy to kind of help guide you through simplifying the event process.
Awesome, cool. I didn't know that, so there you go. And that's actually my other podcast is really meant to be more very targeted tips, like 5 to 15 minutes. So maybe we'll have you on that, and we can go a little deeper into what does it mean to be on camera and all that kind of fun stuff.
Yeah, I'd love to be there.
Awesome, cool. Thanks, John.
Cool. Thanks, Dan. Till next time. Bye.